Welcome to Fact or Freestyle.
People love Dave Nourie, and they always answer the phone when he calls. When we get him on Zoom, we ask him to confirm rumors.
Let's see how far down the rabbit hole we go.
And I nothing else. I'm totally in the moment, and nothing else can even enter my mind because I'm so. Oh,
yeah. Hello, Montana Ricky.
Yo.
There you go.
Hey! Yo, look at that Flatland legend.
Hey, what's up, man?
This is really crazy because yesterday I had a boner for Perry. Right now, I don't think Perry knows this, but every single wheelie kid in the world is just now learning how to do handlebar surfers or whatever they're called. This sounds so crazy, but obviously I ride BMX and then now I'm pro for being a wheelie kid. And every time a wheelie kid DMs me, I just always say, well, I think there's a thing called the Peg of Doom or the Perry of Doom. And I went looking for the video of Perry doing that trick. And then I got lost on YouTube. Holy shit, dude. He is so goddamn, man. Between him and Scott Powell, woo!
We gathered a bunch of these sort of rumor things we're calling dudes. Working title is Fact or Freestyle. And we actually have one for Joe Johnson. When you said that you were talking to Joe Johnson, I was like, oh my gosh, we've got one.
Yeah, so the idea is like everyone's been kind of cooped up. We want to share some of these crazy stories and get them out there. So that's the idea. I run into different ideas that people bounce off of me and different things that I'm like, no, dude, that's not true. But some of the stuff, you know, I remember when Wilkerson rolled a van in Dothan, Alabama at the AFA contest. That was definitely true. For Joe to do it on vert was pretty mind-breaking. So, okay.
All right, fact or freestyle. Joe Johnson had ants in his pants when he invented the vert tail whip.
So here's the story with Joe Johnson. The first tail whip that Joe actually pulled was because he had ants in his pants.
That's so good.
So the person, you know, that I heard, I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, it was like the ants like bit him or like made him flinch. And it was just enough to help him kick the bike all the way around and pull the first one. So Joe, what was the thing that you had heard about it that he
was in that building that some event he and DMC were in some hangar building, was a quarter pipe. His shorts, they hadn't done laundry for like days and it was all sweaty and he pulled it out and it was like ants infested in there and one of them bit his taint and that's what made him twitch and then he got it around.
So what do you think? Have you heard that at all? Because you know Joe, obviously. We think maybe Joe's like in denial about, maybe he's embarrassed about it. You know, he doesn't really want to share the truth. I don't know.
I have like a lot of, it's like nonchalant. It's kind of like if I talk to Paulo Sika, it's random. Or if I talk to, say I'm a little bit younger because I'm only 38, but I have like this BMX boner. So I'm like constantly doing whatever I can to get whatever from BMXers. And
yeah.
So, and whatever, it's usually in the moment I'll have a conversation. So like this ants in the pants one, I've heard, but I didn't like, I haven't asked. So I guess, so I guess I got to ask.
Okay.
He's in denial. So we talked to Joe. This is one of the first shows that Joe and I did. Joe Sickman and I did, and we had Joe Johnson on, and he denied it. And he said, Joe, did you have ants in your pants? And he said no. So Joe Sickman and I want to go and say, all right, what can we do to like support him if he's really can't face his true self if he's done this? I don't know. Maybe he hasn't.
You know what? Okay, so usually when I hear stories or they're always outlandish and they're like only within the group you're allowed to listen to these stories because they don't want like everyone to know these stories, like, right? Oh, it's so bad because goddamn weirdo BMXers. I know all you guys. I run a Instagram account called Y2KBMX. So I'm a whore. But anyway, with this idea you guys have, this is so awesome because you guys are doing like wholesome stories. I started riding BMX in '92. Joe Johnson taught me how to 360, which is so crazy because I'm in BMX and I'm a whore.
Well, wait, we got some other ones. So Joe, go ahead and go to the next segment. So we got the.
So there is another one about Perry. All right, so.
Fact or freestyle. Perry Mervad did not invent the no-handed cyborg.
We are hearing conflicting stories about the origin of some of Perry's tricks. And we're wondering, no-handed cyborg, Perry was shown doing that in a video. And if you talk about that in front of Brian Ryback, Brian will spend an hour telling you how he did it and then Perry took it.
For reasons we don't understand, we never gave Ricky a chance to answer whether that story was fact or freestyle.
The second one.
Fact or freestyle? Bill Nitschke does not know where Perry Merva's pink GT came from.
Was where Perry got that pink GT. This was Perry liberated it from a bike shop and rode it until he got sponsored by Bully.
Bully, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe we were trying to out-talk Ricky, but once again, for reasons we don't understand, we never gave Ricky a chance to answer whether that story was fact or freestyle.
Then the other one, we actually heard the Perry Doom.
All right. Why can't I pronounce this dude's name right? Merva. And I know who he is too, but I can never pronounce this dude's name. Fact or freestyle? Perry Merva did not invent the Perry Doom.
That someone did the Perry Doom before Perry.
Yesterday, I talked to Catfish, and I was like, yo, is it called the Pagadoom? And then he said it was something else. And then I asked Shad Johnson, and then I asked another person, and somebody said somebody else's name. Damn it. They said that this other person did it.
All right. So would you know a first or last name if I gave you a first or a last name?
I have to text because I started a shitstorm with that Pagadoom yesterday because I told the kids that wheelie, I'm like, yo, you guys are doing it wrong. You got to do it from the back peg to the bar. And they're like, that doesn't exist. And then I got lost watching AFA contests. Somebody said something else. So let me see what.
Dave, this is amazing. If Ricky was informed of the secret of the invention of the Perry Doom, this would be huge.
Other source, yeah. And he's got to get that, yeah. So don't.
This is so crazy you guys have me in this because it's like I'm such a BMX whore. I go out of my way to contact people. I'll go out of my way to find them just to ask them questions that no one else will ask them.
I am jittering with excitement to see how this is all going to go down because if he pulls this name,
I know.
You guys already have an idea, or?
Oh, we had him on the show, and we did the Perry thing, and he said, "Let me tell you something about Perry," and it blew our minds.
I'm texting a person right now that went to a lot of the. I don't want to say his name because he's very quiet, but he's texting something right now. But he used to go to the AFA contests all the time.
So here's the velodrome thing.
All right, here we go. Fact or freestyle? James McGraw did a backwards bar ride in his amateur run a few hours before R.L. Osborne did it in his pro run.
Oh, yeah. The velodrome was a different one. Yeah, that's right.
Velodrome was R.L. Osborne invented the backwards bar ride, and he was going to debut it at the velodrome in 86.
It was later.
Okay, 87?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so let's just say 87. Anyway, a guy named James McGraw learned bar rides, and he learned the backwards bar ride. And James was like 13 or 14, but he was amateur. Chronologically, James McGraw was the first person to do a backwards bar ride in a contest. And R.L. Osborne, who invented it, was supposed to be his signature trick, did it in pro class. He goes out to debut this, like the sickest trick ever in pro class, and some snotty-nosed 14-year-old kid in AM does it.
It's so crazy how that works because that's kind of like how hip hop is. Like underground guys, they'll do things and say things, and then guys that have actual credit get the credit for it. It's crazy how that works.
So Joe, why don't we segue into the next bit?
All right. So we have laughed at this so much that we've given it a name.
Fact or freestyle? The Jose Vendetta.
It's called the Jose Vendetta. The Jose Vendetta is Jose Yanez, who invented the backflip.
It's like 1983 or 84, and they're like, yeah, this guy that works for the circus, and then he does the double into the water before Jay Miron.
It was like super skinny ramp off of a pier. So here's the story. He invented the backflip out of a vendetta with Brian Blyther. Brian Blyther was credited as having invented the ground tail whip.
Yes.
And he was in the first issue of Freestyle. Jose claims that he has Super 8 film of him doing a tail whip that predates the Brian Blyther. Now, why is this happening now? Well,
Doesn't he have a
Jose,
documentary coming out?
and he's getting streaming royalties from the Rad. Like it was reissued on streaming. They upscaled it or whatever. They did the 4K thing. And so he's working with those guys to restore the Super 8 film. His plan is to do a tail whip.
Yeah, well, first I heard that he's going to do a tail whip at Mount Baldy Pipe, where Brian Blyther is like known for. It's actually right down his street, right? So Brian would kill that, right? So he wants to do a tail whip in the pipe to rub it in Brian's face. And then Joe, you heard that he was going to do it on like a motorcycle.
He was going to do it on a motorcycle, like an 80, a setup, like the Travis Pastrana bar spin setup. And he was going to do the tail whip on that in Brian Blyther's home on a motorcycle.
I love it. I love it. Oh.
So do you think that's fact or freestyle?
I haven't heard any of this, but I love shit like this. See, this is the stuff maybe because of listening to Scott Powell talk all the time, I get that whole competitive thing in my head of Scott Powell being like the greatest and I can ride anything there is. So for me, when you get that competitiveness where someone says, I've done this first and I'm not the best, but this is me, I want that to be true.
What's ironic, Ricky, is that it's with Brian Blyther, the most like nonchalant, easygoing. I was actually at Winter Nationals in Chandler, Arizona, when Jose did his first backflip at the races. And Brian and I were there. We just got sponsored both by Haro. We're doing a show there. I remember that. I don't really remember any tensions between Brian and Jose, but like Brian has always been the most chill. Brian's just all chill, and like Jose, you know, and I don't know how much this is true, but if it is, he's definitely got, you know, a bone to pick with Brian, which is like the funniest guy to have a bone to pick with.
Right, but I feel like in BMX, maybe like you don't get too much people talking about him. Like, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't get like a lot of talk and a lot of credit. Like, I guess because I work in BMX now and I'm part of BMX. BMX is nothing like skateboarding. Skateboarding like puts legends on a pedestal, and up and coming riders know exactly who's who, and what happened. In BMX, you don't have, you know, like it's my generation right now that should be yelling at the 16-year-old kid, like, watch this rider, pay attention to this rider. Here. That doesn't happen. It's almost like we're all competitive and everybody gets to a certain point and they're like, oh, I got to hold my paycheck. So I better not say anything or do anything. I need to just focus on me. And I think that formula just, it sucks. But I was in the industry too. And I see it so much because it's like, you guys saw Biz Jordan just got sponsored by S&M at 39. Which is a very good thing. And I told Charlie Crumish, I'm like, yo, this is awesome. But not to get sidetracked, I just feel like people need to know who Dave Vanderspeck is. You know, they need to understand who people are, and kids just don't know. So I feel like with Jose, like nobody, like it's almost like a bunny hop now. Nobody gives a shit. Like, think of skateboarding. Everybody remembers the ollie, the first ollie, but I don't even know who did the first bunny hop. I feel like maybe he has a little bit of that animosity, like to put it out there. And so like when he feels like, well, crap, I've done so many firsts and I'm not getting this type of like attention for that. So it's almost like a self-proving thing, but it almost becomes public. And that wouldn't, like in skateboarding, I feel like it doesn't happen because everyone's like, oh, this person, this person, this person. We sat around for the longest time trying to think of like, who did the first wall ride? And then who did this and that? I was talking to the dude at Dig because they were trying to figure out who did the first wall ride and where was it first done? You know, it's so crazy. Like,
we were talking about like Fred Blood and the Decade, and we called Dean Palacio because Dean is the one who invented the trick. Fred Blood saw it, gave it the name Decade.
While we've been sitting here, Scott Powell has sent me 6 new messages. He just sent me him sitting by himself riding all day long.
We all get those, Ricky.
But then we'll start texting, and then I'll get him on the phone. And I can't help myself. I'm the type of person, if I hear something, I just want to hear it. I had a conversation last week with Sean McKinney for 2 hours. I'm the sales rep for Merit BMX. I'm like the new sales rep that's putting himself out there and riding and letting the kids know that like you don't have to be a BMXer, like the best BMXer.